My wife chose her best friend over me. Now she wants me back. It was 2:37 a.m. when my phone lit up on the nightstand. My wife, Sarah, was sleeping right next to me, but the name on the screen made my blood run cold before I even read the message. Hey, I know it's late, but I really need to see you. I'm outside. That message wasn't for me. It was for my wife, and it was from her best friend, Chloe. I stared at that screen for what felt like an hour, watching 3 little dots appear and disappear as Chloe typed and deleted message after message. My hand was shaking so bad I almost dropped the phone. Because here's the thing about marriage. You think you know someone. You think you know their friends. You think you know the boundaries. And then life hits you with something that makes you realize you've been living in a fantasy this whole time. By the end of this video, you're going to hear the full story of how one person's jealousy destroyed a 10-year marriage, why my wife chose her best friend over me not once, not twice, but 3 separate times, and why, even after the divorce was final and she came crawling back, I still said no. Let me back up a little bit. My name is Mark. I'm 34 years old, and up until about 8 months ago, I thought I had the perfect life. I married my high school sweetheart when we were both 24. Sarah and I had been together since we were 17, so by the time we got married, we'd already been through the awkward phases, the growing pains, the fighting over stupid stuff. We were solid, or so I thought. Sarah's best friend Chloe had been in the picture since college. They met during freshman orientation and were attached at the hip from day one. When Sarah and I got serious, Chloe was always there. When we got engaged, Chloe was the maid of honor. When we bought our first house, Chloe was there with pizza and paintbrushes, helping us turn a blank space into a home. But here's the thing about Chloe that took me years to fully understand. She never liked me. Not really. At first, I thought she was just protective of her friend. You know how some best friends get when their person starts dating someone seriously. They worry they're going to lose their spot. I got that. I was cool with it. I went out of my way to be nice to Chloe, to include her, to prove that I wasn't trying to steal Sarah away. But the digs never stopped. They just got more subtle. Wow, Mark, you're really letting him pick the paint colors? Chloe would say, laughing like it was the funniest thing in the world. My boyfriend would never. Or my personal favorite. Sarah, you've changed so much since you got married. Remember when you used to be fun? And Sarah would just laugh it off. She'd say, oh, that's just Chloe being Chloe. You know how she is. And I did know. I knew exactly how she was. But I also knew that bringing it up would make me look like the insecure husband who couldn't handle his wife having a best friend. So I swallowed it. For years, I swallowed it. According to relationship experts, about 68% of married couples report some level of tension with their spouse's best friends. But here's the statistic that really gets me. In cases where the marriage eventually ends, that tension is almost always present from the beginning. It's not the cause necessarily, but it's like a crack in the foundation. You don't notice it until the whole house starts leaning. The first major red flag came about 3 years into our marriage. Sarah's dad got sick, really sick. Cancer. The kind that doesn't give you much time to prepare. We were both devastated. But Sarah was a mess. She spent every spare minute at the hospital, and I supported her completely. I took over all the household stuff. I called her family to check in. I held her while she cried herself to sleep. But Chloe was there too. And slowly but surely, she started positioning herself as the primary support system. Sarah, I can stay with you tonight, Chloe would say. Mark probably needs his sleep for work tomorrow. Or, Sarah, you should come stay at my place for a few days. Get away from everything. I remember one night specifically. Sarah had been at the hospital for 14 hours straight. I brought dinner, I brought clean clothes, I brought her favorite coffee. And when I walked into the waiting room, Chloe was sitting there with her arm around Sarah, and Sarah was crying into her shoulder. Which, fine. That's what friends are for. But then Sarah looked up at me and said, Chloe's going to take me back to her place tonight. Is that okay? And I stood there with coffee in one hand and a bag of her favorite takeout in the other, and I said, of course, whatever you need. But inside, something shifted, because I wasn't just her husband anymore. I was becoming the guy on the outside looking in. Her dad passed away 2 months later. And in the aftermath, Chloe was the one planning the memorial, Chloe was the one handling the flowers, Chloe was the one making the phone calls. I tried to step in, I really did. But every time I offered to help, Sarah would say, "Chloe's already got it handled." I told myself it was grief. I told myself that people process loss differently, and if Sarah needed Chloe right now, that was okay. I was the husband. I was supposed to be steady, reliable, understanding. But here's what I didn't know then. I was setting a pattern. I was teaching Sarah that it was okay to push me aside, that I would always be there waiting, that my feelings didn't need to be considered as long as Chloe's were. Fast forward to last year. Sarah and I had been trying to plan a vacation for months. Just the two of us. We needed it, work had been crazy, we'd been running on fumes, and our marriage was starting to feel more like a roommate situation than a partnership. We finally settled on a week in Mexico. All-inclusive resort, beachfront, the whole deal. I booked it 3 months in advance, paid for the upgrades, the nice room, the romantic dinner package. I was excited. Sarah was excited. For the first time in a long time, we had something to look forward to together. Then Chloe got dumped. Now, Chloe got dumped approximately twice a year, every year like clockwork. She'd date someone for a few months, it would burn hot and fast, and then it would crash and burn in a spectacular fashion. And every single time, Sarah would drop everything to be there for her. But this time was different. This time, the breakup happened 2 weeks before our trip. I remember the night Chloe called. Sarah was in the kitchen making dinner, and I was on the couch watching TV. I heard Sarah's voice change, that soft, soothing tone she used when Chloe was in crisis mode, and my stomach dropped. The call lasted an hour. When Sarah came back to the living room, she sat down next to me and took my hand. "Babe," she said, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to hear me out before you say no." I already knew what was coming. I could feel it. Chloe is really struggling, like really bad. She's not eating. She's not sleeping. She's talking about how she has nothing to live for. I'm really worried about her. "Okay," I said carefully. "So what do you need to do?" "She wants to come with us to Mexico." I laughed. I actually laughed because I thought she was joking. But she wasn't laughing. "I'm serious, Mark. She thinks getting away would help. And she's never been to Mexico. And she's always wanted to go. And I just think it would be really good for her. Let me pause here and ask you something. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done?" Because I've replayed this moment 1,000 times in my head, wondering if I handled it wrong. Wondering if there was a way to say no that wouldn't have led to everything that came after. What I actually said was, "Sarah, this is our trip, our vacation. We've been planning this for months. This is supposed to be time for us." "I know," she said. "I know. But she needs me right now. And it's not like she'd be with us the whole time. She'd do her own thing most days. We'd just have dinners together sometimes." "Or," I said, "she could stay here and we could go on our trip and you could FaceTime her every day and be there for her when we get back." Sarah pulled her hand away. "You don't understand. You've never really liked Chloe. You've always had a problem with her." And there it was. The thing I'd been avoiding for years, finally out in the open. "I don't have a problem with Chloe," I said, which was only half true. "I have a problem with her being inserted into every single part of our lives. I have a problem with never being your first priority when she's around. I have a problem with our marriage feeling like it's me and you and Chloe, instead of just us." Sarah was quiet for a long time. Then she stood up. "I'm going to go stay at Chloe's tonight. We both need some space to think." And she left. 3 days later, Sarah came home. We talked. We argued. We talked some more. And eventually I gave in. Because that's what I always did. I told myself I was being the bigger person. I told myself that marriage is about compromise. I told myself that after Chloe got through this rough patch, things would go back to normal. Spoiler alert, they didn't. The trip was a disaster from the moment we landed. Chloe cried through the entire plane ride. She cried through customs. She cried through the shuttle to the resort. And Sarah held her hand and rubbed her back and whispered comforting things while I sat in the aisle seat, feeling like a third wheel on my own vacation. At the resort, Chloe had her own room, but she was rarely in it. She was always at our door, always texting Sarah, always finding reasons to pull her away. Sarah, come look at this view. Sarah, let's go to the pool. Sarah, I need your opinion on this dress. I spent most of that week sitting by myself, reading books I'd already read, watching couples walk hand in hand along the beach, wondering how I'd ended up alone in paradise. On the third night, we were supposed to have our romantic dinner, the one I'd paid extra for. Private table on the beach, candlelight, personal waiter. I'd been looking forward to it for months. At 5 p.m., Chloe showed up at our door in tears. She'd met some guy at the bar, they'd hit it off, and then she'd seen him talking to another girl. Her words, not mine. She was devastated. She couldn't be alone. She needed Sarah. Sarah looked at me. I looked at her. I'm sorry, she said. I have to go to her. That's our dinner tonight, I said. Our romantic dinner. The one I've been planning for 3 months. I know. I'm so sorry. But she's really upset. She needs me. What about what I need? I asked. What about what we need? Sarah sighed like I was being unreasonable. You're not the one having a mental breakdown, Mark. You're fine. She's not. And she left. I ate dinner alone that night. Sat at that beautiful table on the beach under the stars, with the waves lapping at the shore, and I ate alone. The waiter kept giving me sympathetic looks. The couple at the next table kept glancing over. I wanted to disappear. When Sarah came back to the room around midnight, I was still awake. I didn't say anything. I just watched her get ready for bed, get under the covers, and fall asleep within minutes. She didn't ask how my dinner was. She didn't apologize again. She just slept. And that's when I started to realize that my marriage was already over. I just hadn't admitted it yet. We got back from Mexico and things were weird. Sarah seemed to sense that something had shifted between us, but she didn't know how to fix it. Or maybe she didn't want to. She spent more time at Chloe's. She came home later. She stopped asking about my day. I started sleeping in the guest room. Not because we'd fought, but because lying next to her felt like lying next to a stranger. And then came the night of the phone call. The one I told you about at the beginning. It was 2:37 a.m. Sarah was asleep in our bedroom. I was in the guest room, scrolling through my phone, when I saw Sarah's phone light up on the nightstand. I'd left mine in the living room, so I got up to grab hers, thinking I'd just check the time. That's when I saw the message preview. Hey, I know it's late, but I really need to see you. I'm outside. From Chloe. Now, maybe I should have put the phone down. Maybe I should have woken Sarah up and let her deal with it. But something made me look at that screen. Something made me press the home button and see the rest of the conversation. And what I saw made my stomach drop through the floor. There were messages going back months. Messages I wasn't supposed to see. Messages that made it very clear that Chloe's breakdowns and emergencies weren't random at all. They were timed. They were calculated. They were designed to pull Sarah away from me over and over again. I can't stand seeing you with him, one message read. You deserve so much better. You're the only person who's ever really understood me, read another. I don't know what I'd do without you. And then the one that broke me. I love you, Sarah, not like a friend. You know that, right? I stood there in the dark, holding my wife's phone, reading messages from her best friend that made it crystal clear that Chloe had been in love with her for years. And Sarah? Sarah hadn't shut it down. She hadn't set boundaries. She'd responded with heart emojis and, I love you too, and you're my person. I didn't wake Sarah up. I put the phone back exactly where I found it, went back to the guest room, and stared at the ceiling until the sun came up. The next morning, I made coffee like nothing was wrong. I made breakfast. I sat across from Sarah at the kitchen table and watched her scroll through her phone, laughing at something Chloe had sent her. Everything okay with Chloe? I asked. Yeah, Sarah said without looking up. She's good. She's just being Chloe. Funny, I said. She seemed pretty desperate to see you at 2:30 this morning. Sarah's head snapped up. Her face went pale. What? Your phone lit up. I saw the message. I saw all the messages, Sarah. For a long moment, she didn't say anything. She just stared at me with this look I'd never seen before. Fear? Guilt? Shame? All of the above. It's not what you think, she said finally. Really? Because what I think is that your best friend is in love with you and has been systematically sabotaging our marriage for years. What I think is that you knew about it and you let it happen. What I think is that I've been the third wheel in my own relationship and I was too blind to see it. It's not like that, Sarah said, but her voice was shaking. She has feelings for me, yes, but I don't feel that way about her. I love you. I married you. You love me? You love me? Then why does she come first? Why does every crisis she has take priority over our marriage? Why am I sleeping in the guest room while she's texting you at 2 a.m., telling you she loves you? I didn't know how to handle it, Sarah whispered. I didn't want to hurt her. And me? I asked. You didn't mind hurting me? Sarah started crying. Real tears, ugly crying. The kind that usually would have made me want to comfort her. But I felt nothing. Absolutely nothing. I'll fix it, she said. I'll talk to her. I'll set boundaries. I'll do whatever you need me to do. Just please don't leave me. I should have left right then. Every person watching this video probably thinks I should have walked out that door and never looked back. But marriage is complicated. Love is complicated. 10 years together doesn't disappear overnight, no matter how badly someone hurts you. So I stayed. I gave Sarah a chance to fix it. I told her what I needed. Boundaries with Chloe, transparency with her phone, and couples counseling. She agreed to all of it. She promised she'd make it right. For about 2 weeks, things seemed better. Sarah came home on time. She stopped texting Chloe constantly. She even suggested we have date night, just the two of us. But here's the thing about promises. They're only as strong as the person making them. And Sarah's promises turned out to be pretty weak. Started small. A text here, a phone call there. Chloe's having a rough day. I'm just going to check on her real quick. Then it escalated. Chloe needs me to come over for an hour. Is that okay? Then it was back to where we started. I'm going to stay at Chloe's tonight. She's really struggling. I'd ask about boundaries and Sarah would get defensive. You can't expect me to just abandon my best friend. That's not fair. Fair. I'd say. You want to talk about fair? Fair would have been you being honest with me years ago. Fair would have been you protecting our marriage instead of protecting her feelings. And then came the night that ended everything. I came home from work early. I wasn't feeling well, so I left around 3 p.m. When I walked in the door, I heard voices from the bedroom. Sarah's voice. And Chloe's voice. I stood in the living room and listened. I couldn't make out the words, but I could hear the tone. Intimate. Quiet. The kind of conversation you don't have with a friend. I walked down the hallway and opened the bedroom door. They were sitting on the bed, facing each other. Sarah was crying. Chloe was holding her hand. They both looked up at me with the same guilty expression. I'm sorry, Sarah said. I know what this looks like. It looks like you made your choice, I said. Again. I walked to the closet, pulled out a suitcase and started packing. Sarah was begging, crying, promising. Chloe just sat there with this look on her face. And I swear, for just a second, I saw her smile. Just the tiniest hint of a smile before she caught herself. That's when I knew. This wasn't just about feelings. This was about winning. Chloe had been playing a game for years, and she'd finally won. I stayed at a hotel for a few weeks. Sarah called and texted constantly at first, then less and less. Eventually, the calls stopped altogether. I heard through mutual friends that she and Chloe were spending all their time together. They're closer than ever, someone told me. It's like they're attached at the hip. I filed for divorce about 2 months later. Sarah didn't fight it. She signed the papers without argument, without asking for anything. I think she knew she'd messed up in a way that couldn't be fixed. The divorce was final 6 months after that night in the bedroom. I lost the house, split the assets, all the usual stuff. But honestly, I didn't care about any of that. I just wanted to be free. Here's something they don't tell you about divorce. It's not the paperwork that hurts. It's the memories. It's driving past a restaurant where you used to eat together. It's finding an old photo in a drawer. It's realizing that the person you thought you'd grow old with is now just a stranger who knows all your secrets. I spent a lot of time alone after the divorce. I went to therapy. I worked out. I threw myself into my job. I did all the things you're supposed to do to move on. And slowly, painfully, I started to feel like myself again. 8 months after the divorce was final, I got a text from an unknown number. "Mark, it's Sarah. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I was hoping we could talk. Please." I stared at that message for a long time. I thought about deleting it, blocking the number, pretending I never saw it. But curiosity got the better of me. "What do you want, Sarah?" The response came almost immediately. To explain, to apologize, to see if there's any chance we could try again. I didn't respond, but she kept texting. Over the next few days, she sent message after message, telling me what had happened since the divorce. Apparently, things with Chloe had fallen apart almost immediately after I left. Without me to compete with, without the drama of sneaking around, without the excitement of the forbidden, their relationship had crumbled. Chloe had gotten possessive, jealous of anyone else in Sarah's life. They'd fought constantly, and eventually, Chloe had admitted that she'd never really loved Sarah. She just loved the idea of winning. "She used me," Sarah wrote. "She used both of us. And I was too blind to see it because I didn't want to lose her. But I lost everything instead." I read those messages and felt nothing. No satisfaction. No anger. Just a dull, familiar ache for the life I thought I'd had. Sarah asked to meet. She said she wanted to apologize in person, to look me in the eye and tell me how sorry she was. She said she'd been going to therapy, that she understood now how badly she'd hurt me, that she'd do anything to make it right. I thought about it for a long time. I talked to my therapist about it. I talked to my friends. I weighed the pros and cons. And then I sent my final message. "I appreciate your apology, Sarah. I really do. But too much has happened. Too much was said and done. I've spent the last 8 months putting myself back together, and I can't risk going backwards. I hope you find happiness. I hope you heal. But it won't be with me." She responded with more tears, more apologies, more pleas. I didn't answer. People ask me sometimes if I regret it, if I wonder what would have happened if I'd given her another chance. And the answer is no. I don't regret it. I don't wonder. Here's what I've learned. Love isn't enough. You can love someone with your whole heart, but if they don't prioritize you, if they don't protect your relationship, if they let other people come between you again and again, love doesn't fix that. Trust does. Respect does. Boundaries do. Sarah had 10 years to choose me. 10 years to set boundaries with Chloe. 10 years to be honest about what was happening. And in all that time, she chose Chloe every single time it mattered. A last-minute trip to Mexico? She chose Chloe. A romantic dinner on the beach? She chose Chloe. Our marriage? She chose Chloe. Why would I believe that anything had changed? Because she said so? Because she went to therapy for a few months? Because Chloe finally showed her true colors? No. Trust isn't something you can rebuild with words. It's something you rebuild with actions consistently over time. And Sarah had already shown me, over and over, what her actions looked like when things got hard. It's been about a year since that last message. I'm doing okay. Better than okay, actually. I've been seeing someone new for a few months, nothing serious yet. But it's nice to remember what it feels like to be with someone who actually wants to be with me. I heard through the grapevine that Sarah moved away. Different state, fresh start. I hope she finds whatever she's looking for. I really do. As for Chloe, I don't know and I don't care. Some people are just good at breaking things. They move through life leaving wreckage behind them, and they never stay long enough to help clean it up. If there's one thing I want you to take away from this story, it's this: marriage is a triangle. You, your spouse, and the relationship itself. And that triangle needs boundaries to survive. Healthy boundaries with friends, with family, with everyone outside that triangle. When someone, anyone, starts pulling at one of those corners, you have to make a choice. You have to decide what matters more, protecting that person's feelings or protecting your marriage. Sarah chose Chloe's feelings. Every single time. And in the end, She lost both of us. I'm not perfect. I made mistakes too. I should have spoken up sooner. I should have demanded better treatment. I should have trusted my gut instead of explaining away all the red flags. But I was trying to be the good husband, the understanding one, the one who didn't make waves. Turns out, sometimes you need to make waves. Sometimes you need to rock the boat so hard that people fall out. Because if you don't, you'll just keep drifting further and further from shore until you can't even see land anymore. So no, I didn't take my wife back. Not because I'm cruel or unforgiving or holding a grudge. I didn't take her back because she showed me exactly who she was, and I finally believed her. When someone shows you who they are, believe them the first time. Sarah showed me for 10 years that Chloe would always come first. I just didn't want to see it. If you're in a relationship where you constantly feel like you're competing for attention, where your partner's friends or family always seem to come first, where your needs are consistently pushed aside for someone else's drama, pay attention to that. It's not going to get better on its own. It's going to get worse until you either set boundaries or walk away. You deserve to be someone's priority, not someone's option, not someone's backup plan, not someone's safety net while they chase whatever feels good in the moment. You deserve to be chosen. And if someone isn't choosing you, believe them, and then choose yourself. If you like this story and want to hear more real-life relationship stories, click the video on screen right now. Thanks for listening. Take care of yourselves. And remember, sometimes the bravest thing you can do is walk away from something that's already gone.